All right, we are here to knock out 8.4. This video is being recorded right after school on Friday, which means I am ready to get out of here. So I'm gonna see if I can fly through this as quickly as I can. We're looking at polar ecosystems today, and we're gonna be looking at we have two poles, and so we have two different polar ecosystems, the Arctic around the North Pole, and then Antarctica and the Southern Hemisphere around the South Pole. We'll start off with the Arctic. Remember, you're writing the stuff that's in bold. Don't write it if it's not in bold. If I go too fast, pause it. You know the drill at this point. The Arctic is also known as the frozen ocean. It gets really, really cold in the winter, on average -30, and then can get as high as +50 during the summer. The Arctic consists of an ice-covered Arctic Ocean that is surrounding land. You have Greenland, northern parts of Alaska, Canada, Norway, and Russia that are all encompassed in this area referred to as the Arctic. It is mostly covered by what's referred to as pack ice, which is just frozen seawater. It averages about 2 to 3 meters thick, which is roughly 6 to 10 feet. You do need to definitely make sure you have that. I recall there being a test question related to that. 2 to 3 meters thick. We'll mention this. What you see here in the image is one of these. Oh, I lost my place here. Okay, so with these large chunks of ice, when they collide, the ice can form a big jagged ridge known as a pressure ridge. As the ice pushes along, it forms a kind of a mountain of ice as they collide with each other, referred to as a pressure ridge. Don't need to know that, but I wanted to mention it. Sorry, I lost my place there. The Arctic ecosystem has a unique, complex food web. Starts with plankton. That's going to be the base of it, phytoplankton in particular. You have to have primary production. But then from there, a whole web of animal species and other environmental factors that play a role as well. Capped with a formidable ice and snow cover, plunged into total darkness during the winter, buffeted by blizzard winds and bitterly cold, the Arctic Ocean is one of the most inaccessible and yet beautiful environments on Earth. Yeah, copy and pasted for you. Yep. All right. Let's see. Keep on going. So even though it's really, really cold and seems really inhospitable, there is a fair amount of life here. Not as much biodiversity as we have in really any of our other ecosystems, but there is some stuff going on here. In the area where there is land, so Canada, Russia, Alaska, the parts of it that are encompassed in what we refer to as the Arctic, you can have some large mammals, things like caribou, bear, wolves, Arctic foxes, one of my personal favorites, and then a variety of different plants that can be there as well. Not as much variety of plant life as you would see in other places because of these cold temperatures. The great polar bear roams the Arctic, and then from there, he's the top predator, but then lots of other fish, birds, seals, walruses, even whales that come into it. And here's what an Arctic food web might look like, with the polar bear at the top eating the seals. You got cod being eaten by birds. Phytoplankton is where the energy starts off. So just always going to have that primary production. Polar bear is the world's largest land predator. Would love for you to know that. And also being threatened by the diminishing ice that's happening around the world. So here's where they live. Notice again, Arctic. Polar bears are in the Arctic. This area up here in brown, nothing down here. Do not put any polar bears in an Antarctic food web. And then we do want you to know our ability to study this region is very limited. Expeditions to this remote Arctic, they're difficult, they're expensive. It's very challenging to do much scientific work in this area. So we don't know as much as we'd like to, especially in an area where we'd really like to have much more scientific information of what's going on right now in terms of studying how it's being impacted by climate change. It can be difficult to get that information. All right, and we'll mention this here real quick with walruses. You don't need to write any of it down. An adult walrus, they get pretty big, 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. They have long, sharp tusks. If you note from our previous lesson, the males and females both have tusks. That came up in our marine mammals lesson in our previous unit. Blubber that helps to protect them. Pretty important, and if you ask me, pretty cool animal that we have in our Arctic ecosystem. Antarctica. All right, now we're going south. Antarctica is the southernmost continent and the coldest and driest region on Earth. It is so dry it is literally considered a desert. It covers a huge area. Antarctica is just slightly larger than another continent in the southern hemisphere, Australia. So it's a pretty large area that Antarctica is taking up here. Has average elevation of 2,300 meters. That's 7,500 feet. Make that so a little over 5,000 feet in a mile. So this is a very high elevation that we have here. It's actually the highest continent on Earth. Did you see the comparison here? Average elevation of the state of Colorado is 6,800 feet. Colorado is our highest state in the United States. The Antarctic seas are extremely productive because of phytoplankton. Lots and lots of phytoplankton that we have there. And because of it, we then also see lots of krill, shrimp, crustaceans, other stuff that builds up in that ecosystem around that phytoplankton. Some things we want you to know about that phytoplankton. So each winter, so get that and then this. We're kind of finishing the sentence here. Each winter, microscopic single-celled algae are trapped inside the ice as it forms. And then you have young krill will congregate under the ice all winter long, and that algae provides a food source for them under the ice and helps those krill survive until spring. Notice a little bold part down there. Lets the krill survive until spring. And then in the spring, the ice melts, releasing the trapped algae into the water. And a whole ecosystem comes to life because of it. So now it's living freely as phytoplankton. All they've got to do is grow. They've got open water, lots of nutrients, intense sunshine. So it's a perfect environment for that algae to just take off and grow. So what happens next is then a bloom. We have it in like ponds and that kind of thing, where we call them algae blooms. But that's essentially what is happening here. But in the Antarctic region, the population explodes, the population of phytoplankton. And then from here in this image, kind of hard to see, but this is krill that come into the area because of the phytoplankton. That population explodes as well. And then the other stuff around it that is eating the krill too. Scientists have estimated that the krill in the ocean around Antarctica weigh more than the entire world's human population. Over 8 billion people now that we have at this point on the planet, and all of the krill in the Antarctic region weigh more than the entire human population. That's a lot of krill. An example of what an Antarctic food web might look like. Notice you've got some toothed whales here. You've got some baleen whales. Notice here we have our penguins, several other birds that are going to be a part of this as well. Squid, seals, fish, krill, and then all of it because of this phytoplankton. So a couple things that we do want you to note. This is where we're going to find penguins. Notice that they were not in the Arctic. Penguins are in Antarctica. 17 different species. Common penguins include king, gentoo, emperor, African. There are a number of other species as well. You are not expected to know all of them. We do want you to at least be able to recognize those 4. If you are interested in getting to know all the others, here is a little shot of the rest of them. Feel free to study that to your heart's delight. Penguins live, again, in Antarctica and surrounding area, not the Arctic, excuse me. They live in Antarctica, not the Arctic. So remember, penguins are here, polar bears were up here. If you ever see somebody put polar bears and penguins together in the same picture is because they did not pay enough attention in this class. The scientists studying the Antarctic marine ecosystem now know that it is highly productive. That high productivity is confined to the edge, where that sea ice is, where it melts and refreezes. When you get kind of inward, closer and closer to the actual South Pole, you have less and less productivity, less and less life. There you go. All right, I try to do that as fast as I can, a little tiny quicker than the other lessons, but there you have it, 8.4. Test is on Tuesday, May 4th, so make sure that you are ready for that. Let me know if you have any questions. Peace.